so many of us keep doing something even when it doesn't work, hoping for that different outcome. Why? We don't change the email copy. We don't post at a different cadence. We don't up the volume. It's just like, we're just, you know, I've got so many friends who'll upload a video, delete a video, you know, it's like, we don't change that. And then we're still going, wait a minute, what's going on here?
So my worldview on why anyone does anything is that they've been rewarded for doing that in the past. And so, you know, one of the really difficult things with language in general is that there's descriptive and explanatory language. And so, for example, I'll give the simplest example. You know, Timmy stole a bike because he is dishonest. Okay, well, if we define dishonest, we would say, well, dishonest people steal things. But that's a circular definition. It doesn't actually help. The explanation of why did he actually steal it is because he's been rewarded for stealing in the past, and so he repeated that action because it got him something good. And same thing goes for lying, same thing goes for cheating, all of these things. Like, why does someone do it? It's like because they've been rewarded for doing so in the past. They've been reinforced. And so why do people, do anything? That is, and you know, my worldview is somewhat different than I think many people's because I come from everything from a behaviorist perspective, but it has made me significantly better at business because I get better at predicting behavior. And so I'll give you a simple example. So you know, there was an exec at one of the companies, and I was talking to one of the other owners, and they were like, "Hey, you know, this guy said that he would leave if we changed his title or whatever." And I said, okay, well, how many times have you changed his title historically? And he said, plenty of times. And I said, okay, has he ever left? And the answer was no. And I said, so based on his history of behavior, I would say that he says these things to decrease the likelihood that you do it because that's his preference. But the likelihood that he quits as a result is low. And so it's like those kind of deconstructions, some people just take things at face value. It's like, well, if we actually try and find the explanation rather than the description of the event, we can get way better at predicting behavior, including our own. And I think that's where like people are like, I want to get back to the trauma of whatever. It's like, maybe like, can I go into this? Because I think this might be helpful. So
I love the direction you're going.
Okay. So many people will use trauma or some event and they will create a narrative around why haven't I started? It's because my dad didn't hug me enough as a kid and I don't have this confidence. So they just create this big story. And then they're like, I need to go see a therapist so that I can, you know, untangle all of this. But if I were to say, hey, I'm going to teach you how to serve in pickleball, right? We wouldn't have the first session be, hey, do a serve, and then you would serve, not ideally if I'm a pickleball coach, right? And then I'd say, okay, so for the next, you know, few weeks, what we're going to do is we're going to try and go back in the past, and we're going to try and figure out why your serve is so bad. And no, we're just going to say, change your wrist like this. This is how you do it. And so it's so much more productive to just focus on what do we need to do instead, rather than trying to figure out why you did it, because the reality is you're never going to know. It's a convenient narrative and it might make sense, but at the same time, it could just be that you were rewarded for doing something like this in the past period. Now, there might have been conditions that created that reward and you can lament the person, but at the end of the day, the only thing you can do about it is change behavior. And so trauma, which is tossed around a lot, I define as a permanent change in behavior from an aversive stimulus, some bad thing. So you permanently change how you act because of something bad that happened. Now, the question is trauma bad? Well, did the change in behavior result in increase or decrease in the likelihood of achieving whatever goal we have? And so if a kid touches a hot stove and they say, ouch, and then they never touch hot stoves again, then that was a traumatic event by that definition. And it's probably good trauma because they never touch hot stoves again. So decrease the likelihood they die in a fire. Great. And so sometimes it's like, well, then maybe we can be grateful for some of the quote traumas that we've had because it permanently changed my behavior in a good way. Now, if we have quote trauma that permanently changed my behavior in a negative way, so I had bombs and saw someone die in front of me, and the next time I hear a loud noise, I freak out and I can't perform my job, then that would be something that decreases the likelihood. But then at that point, rather than trying to figure out the triggering event in the past, we just think, okay, how can we recondition this person under similar conditions so that they can act this way instead? And so trauma, what it ends up happening is it becomes an accelerated learning event. And so something bad happens, your brain's like, pay attention, because it's like, I'm going to learn and I'm going to permanently change our behavior to make sure this doesn't happen again. And so it's not this, and I hear this because a lot of people will anthropomorphize, make human or, try and biologize. That's a word, go for it. Something that occurs. It's like it's stored in your body. And I was like, we're not computers, right? It's just that you have a behavior set and all we have to do is change these behaviors and then it eliminates. And so this all started with feedback. And so the reason feedback is fuel and what makes feedback good versus bad, or rather useful versus non-useful, is the latency of the feedback. How quickly do you get it? And how specific is it? And so if you say, hey, that sucked in the moment, not helpful. I will be less, what it will do is make me less likely to do the thing in front of you, right? If you said that. On the flip side, if you were to say immediately, hey, real quick, when you do your intro, raise your tone a little bit at the end because I think it'll actually create more curiosity and people want to stay longer. Okay, do the intro again. There, I have a very specific piece of feedback and I did it immediately so that the likelihood that you change behavior is really high and maybe that it sticks. And so the reason feedback is full, and ideally if you're trying to change someone else's behavior or even your own, it's like I want to seek out very fast feedback that's as specific as possible to the behaviors. And so I tell the story a lot because it's a story that we tell inside of our company because it's almost become lore. But we had a director, super proficient, very competent in his role, really high performer. The problem was that everyone said, he's such a dick. And the thing is that I liked his performance and I want to decrease the likelihood that I get complained to about him. And so he had 4 different people in the company have like one-on-ones with him being like, hey, I need you to stop being a dick. And the thing is his behavior didn't change. And so I was supposed to be like final boss in this situation and be like, all right, let's have this sit down. And so I said, hey, I don't care if you are a dick on the inside. I would like to decrease the likelihood other people describe you as one. And so I want to be clear, I have no judgment. I just want to change this likelihood, this outcome. And so that kind of took the personal attacks out of the conversation. And then it was like, okay, so what are the behaviors you do skill-wise as minutely as possible that get people to say this about you? So it turned out it was you interrupt people on calls, you tell people how to do their jobs, and it was 2 other things, whatever it was. And so I said, so next time you have the desire to tell someone what to do about their job, you have 2 options. Either say nothing or say, hey, I heard this thing that might help. Do you mind if I share it? If you just say that first, and if they say no, then just be like, okay, no worries. Or they say yes, then now you have permission to share it. And when you share it in terms of behaviors, criticism, not insult. And so I just had to change a couple of those things. And then within a week, people were like, oh my God, he's a night and day, he's a different person. They create all these narratives. Maybe it was because his mom did hug him, she called him, or because we told him what to do instead. And so I bring this up because I think many people do not take action around pursuing their dreams because of narratives that they create about their past. But the reality is that none of that matters because all we have to do is just say, what do we need to do instead under these conditions? Yeah. And if we take that premise, then you need to learn. And learning means same condition, new behavior. And so if every day is the same for you, to your point of insanity, then you have the same conditions. And if your behavior has not changed, then maybe you are insane, right? Or at least for expecting a different outcome.
Yeah.
And so that I think makes it significantly more palatable of like, just change this one thing and then run it again.
Yeah.